Hello and welcome to this series of tutorials on geometric beadwork. My name is Erin Peña and I've been beading for about 20 years. And in 2025 I was awarded a grant by the Minnesota State Arts Board to make this series of tutorials covering the basics of the kind of geometric beading I do. I do have a separate video covering the tools and materials I use, but briefly, these beads are by the brand Miyuki. They're called Delica beads, and the thread I am using is called Fireline, and I typically use a 4-pound test. So this is the video for the square, and it is the last of our 4 basic shapes here. And I saved this one to last because it combines elements from all of them, sort of. The square has the longest increase cycle, it's 5 rows, and it increases by 12 beads every cycle, or 3 beads per side. We're going to take it step by step, but the cycle of increased beads goes 3, 2, 2, 1, none. So squares come out pretty flat, sometimes more, sometimes less. They're also easier to press into shape, like this. The bigger they get though, the heavier and floppier they become, which is true of all beadwork, but I tend to notice it more with squares. Alright, so let's get started. Get a comfortable length of thread, not more than a wingspan, a couple of feet. Mine might be a little short today. We may have to stop and start, but that is very possible, so not a big deal. Okay, as before, pick 2 colors of beads, one for the sides, one for the corners. This will be color A, my sides color, color B, my corner color. So pick up 4B. Slide them down to the end of your thread. Leave yourself just 1 inch or 2 of tail to weave in later. And tie a square knot. You can see how your knot, sorry, I'm trying to hold it steady for you, it's looping all over the place. You can see how your knot is hanging out in between 2 beads here. Decide whether you want to work clockwise or counterclockwise. It doesn't make a difference. I work clockwise, and I'm going to sew through the bead next to the knot in the clockwise direction. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of a tug so that the knot is inside the bead. There we go. And that's our first row. Okay, second row, pick up 1A, then sew through the B bead directly next in the loop, in the direction that you're working, which again for me is clockwise. Just like that. All right, do that 2 more times. Pick up 1A, sew through the next B bead in the loop, pick up 1A, sew through the next B bead in the loop. Okay, and this is our last A of the row, so pick up your A and sew through the next B bead, and then step up to begin your next row by also sewing through that first A we placed, the A directly after the B we're sewing through. When we work peyote stitch, every row that we work is sewn through the row directly below it. So in order to begin our next row, we have to set up our thread so that it's coming out of the row we just finished, right? So that we can prepare to work off of that row. Okay, now if you'll remember with the pentagon video, we had to do a bunch of rows in the beginning before we could start doing our increase cycle proper. With the square, these 2 rows are the only foundational rows. After these, we jump straight into the increase cycle of 3, 2, 2, 1, none. So, first up is the 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick up 3 bee beads, and we're going to skip over this bee because that is from the row below. We don't work through the row below. We only work through the immediately preceding row, which was these A's. So we're only going to sew through A's. So pick up 3B, sew through the next A, and you see how the bees are making like this little semicircle here? Use your needle or your fingernails, or both, to try and get that middle bee to sit in between the 2 on either side so it makes more of a flat line, like that. It doesn't make a huge difference, and later on it may not be possible to get this nice shape, but it'll set you up for a nice even beadwork. It'll be less lumpy as we go on. All right, do that again. 3B through the next A. Mess with the beads so that your middle one is where you want it. Nice straight line. 3B again. Through the next A. Settle the bees. And our last one, we're going to go through the A, and we're also going to step up by sewing into the row we just finished. So we're going to sew through that A here, and we're also going to sew through this first B, only the first B. Okay. Don't forget to mess with these beads, get them, there we go. There we go. Okay. The next row, we're on the first 2 of the 3, 2, 2, 1, none. So when we're working off of a row with 3 in the corner, what we are going to do is we are going to come out, the thread will come out of this first of the 3, and it's going to skip over that middle bead and come through the last. We're not going to work through that middle bead ever again. It's just there to hold space and to fill out the shape. So, pick up your 2B, skip over the middle bead, and sew through the last B of the 3. Now we have a spot here, you can see, for an A bead. So pick up 1A, sew through just the first of the 3, pick up 2B, skip over the middle, and sew through the third. Spot for another A, coming out of that first B, pick up 2B, skip over the middle B, and sew out through the third B. Another A, through the first B, pick up 2B, sew through the third B. Okay, and this is our last bead of the row. It's an A bead. So we're going to finish the row by sewing through that first B bead that's right next to us. That's right next to where we're placing the A. And we're also going to step up by sewing through the first of these 2 B beads that we placed on top of it. So we sewed through this bead, the first of the B beads, and this bead, the first of the 2 B beads that we just placed. Okay. Next up is another 2 in the corner, right? 3, 2, 2, 1, none. So once again, and this will be familiar if you've worked a triangle, pick up 2 B beads. We're coming out of this first of the B's and we're going to sew through the second. Just like that. And you can see now we have space for 2 A's on each side. So pick up 1 A, sew through this middle A here. That A will go nicely into place. Another A, sew through the first of your B beads. Now we're in the corner again, so pick up 2 B beads, sew through the second. Pick up 1 A, another A, sew through the first of the B beads, pick up 2 B beads, sew through the second of the B beads, another A, another A, into the corner, pick up 2 B's, out through the second B, 1 A, and this is our last bead of the row here, is another A, and we're going to finish the row by sewing through that first B bead, and we're going to step up by doing basically the same thing we did last time, like sewing through the next B bead of the 2, like just coming out of the corner here in between these 2. So sew through this bead and sew through this bead. Okay, so we just finished our second 2 of the 3, 2, 2, 1, none cycle. So now we're into 1 bead in the corner. All right, and our thread is coming out in the corner. So pick up 1 B bead. You're coming out of the first of these 2 B's. You're going to sew through the second. And that 1 will just sort of hang out right between those like that. And now on the sides, because of the beads we're adding in the corner, our space for A's is increasing. It's 3 per side this time. So pick up an A, sew through the A beads that are sticking up, the up beads. That's terminology you'll often see when you're researching other peyote stitch patterns. Up beads refers to basically the row we just worked. Those beads will be sticking up, and those are the beads that we work off of. All right, our thread is coming out of the first of the 2 in the corner. Sew through the second, pick up 1 B, sew through the second. There you go, 1 in the corner. 3 A's, working through our up beads. Flying shapes everywhere. Into the corner again. 1 B bead. And 3, cat hair everywhere, that's my life. 3 A's down the side. One B in the corner. And 3 A's. It's a little tight, so it's clicking pretty strong, but there's room. Okay, and this is our last bead of the row. So we're going to finish the row by sewing through the first of the 2 B beads in the corner, and then we're going to step up by sewing out through that 1 we just placed in the corner. So 1 at a time, or both at once, whichever's easier. Okay, there we go. And our thread is coming out of that 1 in the corner. And now we're onto the none row of the 3, 2, 1 none cycle, the last row in the cycle. And we're not adding any more beads in the corner, so it's going to be all A beads all around. And basically the purpose of a none or a 0 row is to set up the next increase cycle, right? Like it's to, because with 1 in the corner right now, we don't really have anywhere to go here. We can't place much more in the corner and in a way that is elegant. I will put it that way. So we do a placeholder row, basically, a none row, and that will give us space up on top of this 1 bead to start building out the corner again. You'll see more what I mean when we finish this row. So we are doing 1, 2, 3, 4 A's along each side. And we are going to treat those corner beads, those 1 in the corner, just the same as the beads along the side. Just go through them, sew through them. Just like this. Pick up your A and just sew through the corner. And if your bead sort of hugs over by the corner there, just shove it back into place a little bit. Get it closer to the side than to the corner. It's not a huge deal. Again, it's just one of those little things that will make for a more even working. You've probably noticed that I've been stopping and starting this recording more than the previous ones. I did notice that the pentagon video was a wee bit blurry, still legible, I think, but a little blurry, and I'm trying to figure out why that happened. So I'm sort of stopping and starting and looking at what I'm doing and making sure it's all legible, as opposed to, recording 40 minutes, as with the Pentagon video, and only then figuring out that it was a bit blurry. I'm very new at this. Okay, and here's our last A in the row. So pick up your A, finish the row by sewing out through that one B bead in the corner, and then step up by sewing through the A bead immediately after that. Okay. I'm just gonna shorten my tail here a bit. Okay. All right, so you see what I mean about making space? Like, we're going to put 3 here in between these 2 A beads, and now there's space for that. So we're going to do one more increase cycle together. These are long increase cycles, so we're just going to do the one more. And our thread is coming out in a side, so first work our A beads down towards the corner here. Okay, we're coming out of this A bead directly facing the corner. Pick up 3 B beads, skip over this guy because that's from the row below, and we don't work the row below, we only work the row we just did, which was all A's. Go through that next A. And you can attempt to do the straight line thing from the semicircle to the straight line like we did the first time. There may not be space for it this time because it's more of a curve. The space we have is more of a curve, and that's okay. Like I said, it just is nice if you can. It's not necessary. All right, work our 3 A's here down to the next corner. And then we pick up 3 B's. Skip over that B right there. Go straight through the A. See if you can mess with the B's a little bit. Maybe yes, maybe no. Not really. Okay. Down the side again. Three B's. Yeah, I'm not even going to try and mess with those. I know that they're just going to sit the way they're going to sit. Okay, this is our last stitch of the row, so pick up your 3B. And this is a space where people often get a little mixed up. So it's important to make sure that you both finish the row and then step up. So you have to sew through 2 beads. I see people sometimes miss finishing and move straight to stepping up. They'll go through this one and miss this one. So just make sure that you're doing both beads. Sort of. Yeah, sort of. Okay. And now we're doing 2 in the corner. Okay, and remember, when we're working off of a row with 3 in the corner, we just come out of that first one, that first B in the corner, pick up our 2B, skip over the middle B, and go straight through the third B. There we go. A's down the side here. We've hit that spot where the shape is large enough that there's quite a lot of blank space. Come out of that first B, pick up 2B, skip over the middle B, go through the third. There we go. You can see those middle beads are bumping out a little bit. That's okay. Keep your tension tight anyways. It's just the nature of the beads, you know. Like, all these increase cycles are approximations, really. Okay, last bead in the row. It's an A bead. Remember to both finish and step up. Finish, step up. If you forget to finish and you move straight into stepping up, you'll screw off your count and you'll turn it into a weird spiral, never-ending row. I've done it before. I've seen other people do it before. It can be frustrating. Okay. And next in the cycle is another 2 in the corner. Coming out of that first of the 2 from before, picking up 2B, going through the second. And you can mess with your beads a little bit so that they've got a nice angle right there. They're not overlapping. A's down the side. So into that first B bead in the corner, pick up 2B, so out through the second B bead in the corner, fuss with the beads so they sit nicely together, and proceed down the side. There'll be a hiatus on this project for the month of September, but when I come back, I'm going to start talking about patterns and reading patterns, because that's, I find it more exciting to have lots of interesting colors and weird geometric patterns, rather than to just, two colors, sides, corners. That's my preference. So we'll talk more about that later, because it's a little bit of an odd art form, reading patterns. My thread's getting a bit short. I may not make it. Okay, and here's our last bead in the row. So finish and then step up. All right, and now we're into the 1 of the 3, 2, 2, 1, none cycle. So just the same as before. A's down the side. Coming out of that first of the 2 B beads in the corner, pick up another B, go through the second. Sorry, I've explained before, my tendency is to hold the work like real close to me. So it keeps inching down the table towards me. My thread is getting short enough where I can't really use my needle to pick it up anymore. It's okay, we'll just keep working. I can use my fingers. Incoming cat. Yes, dear. She has been all up in my grill for this video. For, reasons that are mysterious to me. Cat reasons. Right, coming into another corner. Let me illustrate this really quickly. I see this happen sometimes. You can see how this space is really tight here, in between the side and the corner. Another bead does go there, right? Don't just sew straight through this one and give yourself a huge space here and you'll lose count. It's important to keep a good count of your beads, and to keep a good tension in your thread, because that's the way you're going to recognize where a bead should go, basically, and be able to spot those danger points before you get a few rows on and then have to go back, which is always sad. So keeping a careful count of your beads is going to be the best way to spot those kind of mistakes. All right, in the corner again. is our last corner. So 1 bee bead. You can see thread has gotten so short, but we have just enough to make it. Haha, I have guessed correctly. And this is our last bead. So, finish. And if we were going to do another row, we would step up. And there you go. That is 2 full cycles of the square increase cycle. Before, when we finish these shapes, we've added another none row at the end. We don't need to do that here. Number 1, my thread is done. Number 2, I think you get it. And the reason we do add that last none row sometimes is because if we're going to join shapes together, like this, that is, the none row is what I would use to join those shapes. You can see sort of a zipper effect. We'll have a full video tutorial on doing that, on starting to make 3-dimensional shapes. But I think we will close this one out by weaving in our ends. So, as before, some people like to tie knots. I don't. I prefer to do sort of a figure 8 weave in. So I'm going to sew my thread in sort of a diagonal down through these 2 beads, and then I'm going to turn it around and sew up through like these 3 beads. So, down, up. 1, 2, making sure you pull tightly to bury the thread between the beads so it doesn't show. Okay, and then move your needle, turn your needle around, come up, pull tight, maybe even use your fingernails to push the thread in there. Come up. It's okay to flip it around, poke your needle through, like, it doesn't have to just be straight like this. It can go through like this. That's often easier. Okay. Sewn in our figure 8. And then for the tail thread here, it's already next to a square knot, so we don't really need to do too much to weave it in. I'm just gonna go through a couple beads here just for a little bit of added security, so I'm not cutting it off directly next to a knot. Don't want to weaken the knot's integrity. I'll just go through one more. Okay. And then you can cut it off with your very sharp scissors, or use your thread zapper, whichever you prefer. At this point, I kind of use both, honestly. All right, there we go. The last of our 4 basic shapes. Yeah, from here, again, there's going to be a September hiatus. I may still have time to get that increase cycle video out before then. We'll see. But when I get back, you can look forward to talking about patterns and also beginning to talk about 3-dimensional shapes, which will be, you know, Ash, I'm sorry. That was a tail swipe. That was a tail swipe. Okay. Anyways, yes. Thank you for joining me, us, girl cat. I'm gonna once again shout out my Patreon at hummingbird_night, where I am releasing patterns for all of these shapes and also for flat peyote stitch once a month. And also there's an option to get bead kits with that if that's something that interests you. And my website, where I do have some like full patterns, full tutorials written out, available for purchase. Yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you next time.